So it is my great privilege to introduce you to the new topic on the Compass banner, the newest section, Children and Youth. It won't be quite this prominent when we go to the site. But for those of you in the back, this is where you'll find it. I do want to mention we didn't just discover in late 2010 that we had some children and youth in our state here on Compass. We do have already a section devoted to early childhood, early years of critical development, an entire topic devoted to educational outcomes, as well as age-related breakdowns all throughout the site. But this section really builds on that important foundation, and it goes further and looks at child development holistically. So I just want to recap real quickly some of the themes that emerged from our advisory group. Chris already mentioned. Really, we heard repeatedly, children develop in context, not alone. They develop in the context of their families, their communities, their out-of-school time and in-school time activities. Really, for them, relationships matter and environments matter. And some of these environments have more or less of the developmental nutrients that are so important to their healthy success. As Chris said very nicely, we wanted to focus on the positives, the assets, and the contributions that children and youth bring. There is an abundance of data about the deficits that our children have, and not as much about their assets. And we really wanted to frame the section up in this way, and we were committed to doing that, even though it was more challenging for us. Of course, we don't want to overlook those children who are at greater risk, who are highly vulnerable, and so we certainly have them on our radar as well. And finally, we wanted to show data by particular groups, boys and girls, different racial and ethnic groups, to really highlight that childhood is a different experience for different groups of kids in our state. They have different needs, different opportunities, resources, and outcomes. And before I go on, I'll just say that this is my favorite of Minnesota's 1.2 children getting her need for ice cream met on a much warmer day than today. So here you have the four key measures that comprise our new children and youth section. And they are population trends, child population trends, connection to caring adults, enrichment activities, and groups at a glance. And I will just briefly relate why we arrived at these four key measures. There's a lot of other things in our other parts of our website, but we really wanted to hold these up. First of all, population trends. This generation of young people is really different than prior generations in our state. They're more culturally, linguistically, ethnically diverse. They're very digitally inclined. And so really good demographic data is the starting point for planning programs and policies that relate to our children. And I think we have some catching up to do in understanding who our young people are today. Connection to caring adults. As Chris talked about, as Carolyn talked about so wonderfully in introducing us to Sarah, this is a key developmental asset for children. And when children have caring adults in their life, they're more likely to avoid risky behaviors, they're more likely to be resilient. And when other things are going wrong in their life, we have research that tells us that this can keep them on track. So it's really key. Enrichment activities. What happens outside of school time? Kids do not stop learning, but the question is really, what are they learning? Are they coming home to an empty home, or are they doing things that aid their development and push them in important new directions? So we really want to look at enrichment activities as well. There's also a strong research base on this topic that shows that kids who are involved in enrichment activities outside of school time are more likely to do better in school. They have better attendance, better grades, they're more likely to graduate on time and have higher aspirations for college, have better interpersonal skills. So it's all very supportive of their development. And finally, groups at a glance. This is a function that we have on Compass that pulls together all the data across the website. And so we thought it was important to do that and examine different groups of children in that area. Actually, before I go on, I just want to mention, Chris talked about this Minnesota Student Survey, which is just an excellent resource we have in our state. It's a collaboration between 4 state agencies, and it's administered every 3 years to students in 6th, 9th, and 12th grades. And we have very high participation across the state. About 90% of districts, regular public school districts, including charters and tribal schools, participate. And it gives us really rich data directly from young people, unfiltered by their parents, about their experiences. So this is our source for both the connection to caring adults and enrichment activities. So now that I've told you the why behind these measures, just a couple of nuts and bolts about how we put these together. When we're looking at connection to caring adults, the question in the student survey, it asks young people about their perceptions of caring, both by their parents as well as other adults in the community. And actually, when we look at the parent data, almost across the board, regardless of background, young people say that their parents care about them very much. They're pretty assured of that. But where we see a really different story is when we look at the additional support that young people get by community members and how they perceive they're cared about by them. And so what we've chosen to do for this section is to focus on the community adults and the perception that young people have that they care about them, that they are an important connection in their life. So we are examining these three groups of adults: teachers and other adults at school, which could be coaches or counselors, religious and spiritual leaders, as well as other adults in the community. And what we did is examine students who felt a high degree of caring in one or more of those community adults groups. Enrichment activities. The student survey asks about 8 different types of activities that students participate in or may not, and their frequency that they do so. And they include things such as fine arts, clubs, school and community sports, park and rec, mentoring, religious activities, and service learning. And I think it's important to say, in the language of Search Institute, oftentimes these are the sparks, the things that animate kids, that give their lives meaning, that express who they are in their essence, and connect them to positive outcomes. And what we've chosen to do for our website is to look at what we have termed those students who are highly engaged in enrichment activities, meaning that they participate in any combination of these activities 3 or more times per week. And the reason we chose to do that was at the urging of our advisory council, because dosage really matters when it comes to these things. And the more opportunity the kids have to participate in these activities, the more likely they are to reap those positive youth outcomes that I mentioned earlier. Finally, groups at a glance. As I said, it's going to pull all of our, it pulls all of our measures about children and youth into one place on the website, and I'll show you how that works. We added some additional data identified by our advisory group, and we've prepared it for racial and ethnic groups in the state as well as all children. So I'm going to show you all of these features on the website. So I just want to point out here we have children and youth up on the black banner of topics. And by clicking on key measures, you can see these 4 key measures I just named to you. We start off in population trends. And I want to show you just at the statewide level, we have more than 20 graphs about child population and lots of different ways to help you understand who our young people are today by race, ethnicity, by their parents' nativity, whether they're native or foreign-born, their poverty status. For example, you can look at the Hispanic population at the county level among the child population and see some very interesting patterns. We see that there are 3 counties in the state, Nobles, Watonwan, and Candy Ojai counties that all have more than 20% of their child population that is Hispanic. So as I said, there are lots of data here from the state down to the local level that's really rich. You can also change your region here and explore in your region, get to know the kids who are closer to your home. Before I go on, I'm going to test your knowledge on child population questions. So if you could grab your keypads. What percentage of the black child population in Minnesota has a parent that was born outside of the U.S.? Is it 5%, 15%, 25%, or 35%? Go ahead and make your answer. Are you surprised? I was too. So it's fun to relate some of our findings. As I said, I think there's some catching up we have to do about understanding who our young people are today. The correct answer, if you can't see, is 35%. More than a third of the black child population has one or more parents that was born outside of the U.S. And I'm going to take you to our website now so you can see where you can find this information in our population trends. If you look at the breakdown here, and for purposes of this graph, we've excluded the white non-Hispanic kids. And these 2 purple lines represent black children who have at least one parent who's foreign-born, and then black parents who have black children who have U.S.-born parents. And taken together, you can see the whole black child population, and this group with a foreign-born parent represents more than 1/3. So pretty surprising. Let's jump into caring adults, and I have another question for you right away. Which group of students do you think is most likely to report feeling connected to caring adults in the community? 6th grade girls, 6th grade boys, 12th grade girls, or 12th grade boys? If I didn't fool you on this one. 6th grade girls, maybe you know some 6th grade girls. On this issue, we do see that girls have the edge over boys in feeling that caring from the community, and we do see that it also declines with every successive age group. And so as children get older, they're less likely to feel that they have support from the community members. I think that's something that we can take away from here and think about how we can improve that. I'm going to show you where you can find this in our Caring Adults section on our website. I'm going to cruise over here to the key measures and switch it to Caring Adults and show that you can examine this by grade and by gender. And the blue bars here are the boys, and the red bars represent the girls. And we start in 6th grade and move down to 12th grade, and you can see how this declines their sense of being cared for in the community as they age, as they get closer to adulthood or leaving for college. On the whole, we have positive news. We have 3 data points since 2004 where we tracked this data in the student survey, and on the whole, we've seen an uptick. So there is an improvement on the whole for young people in our communities, which I think is very heartening. I do want to show you, though, that it differs quite a bit depending upon what group you're in. And if we look by racial and ethnic group, we see actually Asian students are the least likely to report the sense of caring. If we combine and we just look at students of color and white students, we were really hopeful that when we looked at this new data, we wouldn't see some of the similar disparities that we see in other areas. But even in perceptions of caring in the community, we see a large gap between students of color and white students. I just want to say you can explore this data all the way down to your local district level, and I hope you'll do so. I have one more question for you about enrichment activities. True or false, students in the Twin Cities are more likely than students in Greater Minnesota to be highly engaged in enrichment activities. And here we're talking about the Twin Cities region, I should say, the 7-county region. It is false. And I'll just show you quickly where you can find this data. There isn't a geographic disparity. When we look in this way, we see about equal levels of students who are highly engaged in enrichment activities, which is great. We do see differences, of course, when we examine by different groups. And I just want to point out, for example, when we look at lower income students and higher income students, based on their enrollment in free and reduced price lunches, we see a 16 percentage point gap in engagement here, in high engagement. And so when I first saw this, it reminded me of that Time article from last summer that talked about how out-of-school time activities actually can contribute to the disparities, the achievement gap we see in schools. This is the first thing that crossed my mind, and how we have differential access here in Minnesota. Finally, I'm just going to show you here our groups at a glance. We're really excited about this. What pulls up first here is groups at a glance for all children in Minnesota, and you can see we have lots of great population data here, place of residence, nativity, health and development measures, including youth obesity, uninsurance rates, all of our education data, contributions they make in the community, such as volunteering or working, and so on, and then characteristics of families. So you can explore this up here using these breakdowns, for example, to pull up a profile of American Indian children in our state and take a look and see on the whole how they're doing on various outcomes. We also have, as with all the rest of our sites, we have all sorts of excellent more measures, different data sources and resources for you. We have ideas at work where lots of collaborations are cataloged, and we have an excellent library. This is a new section, and so we really welcome your feedback, and we want to hear from you. And it's a place where emerging efforts such as the school readiness report card and other things can be cataloged. And finally, I just want to say, with the theme today being making connections, I really hope this data, as you dig into it and reflect on it, will help us think about how we can make more connections, particularly with young people, because it is so critical to their development. Whether it's mentoring a child, whether it's simply reaching out to someone in your community, I hope we can all do that. It's a real easy action step.